Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're going to do a newbie review for Velocity Banking. And if you're watching a Velocity Banking video on the weekend, you're what I would call part of the Weekend Warrior tribe because that's what we do on our weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, just go over Velocity Banking because it's so awesome. All right, so today's Friday, Friday night. So let's start off with a quick introduction about my credentials. So if you don't know, if you've never watched a video about velocity banking or any of my videos, basically, I've used this strategy to pay off debt quickly. And one of the things that I really was excited to do after I've learned strategies to pay off 25% of my mortgage in about a year. So if you take a look here, and I always show this chart in almost every single video because I like to flex, is that you'll notice that the maturity date is 2051. So if you subtract 30 years, that's 2021. That's when I got the mortgage. And then after 1 year after 2021, that's like the first year, you can see the original loan amount and the principal balance right here. And so if you just do a quick calculation, right, just do a quick calculation of 238,496 minus 179,681.65. And then I paid off $58,000 of debt in about a year. $58,000 of debt. Mind blown. Boom. Right. All right. So now let's see how much of the original debt was paid off. 25%. So 24.6, 25% in a year. Now, if you take a look at the average American, right, average American stats, they do something like this, especially if you're from Southern California, where I'm from. So what they do is they buy a home for market value, let's say 208,000, which is like a steal in Southern California these days. But back in the 90s, they buy a home for $280,000, and then bam, 30 years later, instead of that mortgage going to zero, they somehow owe almost the same amount. I don't know how that's possible, but that's really the statistic of most average Americans who have mortgages. Okay. Now, I'm going to actually go to the strategy and talk about it to show you how we can just easily pay off debts. Just a quick newbie review. But, what is velocity banking, right? All it is an easy cash flow management system. You pay off debt quickly, you minimize interest, and you maintain control of your money, right? Easiest set it and forget it system that I can think of to be able to pay off your debts quickly, right? Okay. So, in order to do velocity banking, you just need to do two things, right? Number one is you got to have a budget. Number two, you got to have an operating account, and that'll be your line of credit. Okay. So budget's easy. You write your pay down your paycheck, you write down your expenses, and then you kind of go a little bit more detail, and then you select your line of credit, your operating account, right? So what's a line of credit? All it is a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay it back, and then reuse it over and over again. So if you have a credit card, you already have a line of credit. And I think, based on the statistics, they say that Americans now have like $1 trillion of credit card debt, and that's never been seen before. So you probably have a credit card. If you don't, you could probably get one, right? Okay, so now you have a budget, operating account, which is a line of credit. And again, credit cards aren't the only line of credit. And I'm going to actually use a personal line of credit in our example, but let's just do this, right? So I already have a sample budget made for here, and we're just going to go into it. Again, I use the same figures over and over again. If you watch any of my videos, I use the same figures over and over again. Why is that? Because repetition is the mother of all learning. And if you know how to just do the basic scenarios, you know how to apply it to yourself. So let's just assume, you're the average American, you have $5,000 paycheck. We'll say $3,000 of expenses. Now, checking and savings, you have $2,000. And here's the thing, the way that we're taught to use our money is that we're just meant, if we have anything left over, we're just meant to park it in checking or savings just in case of emergency, right? Now, and in that scenario, it's kind of like saying, hey, don't ever touch that money. We're never going to use it to apply to everything, and we're going to have zero cash flow. Now, I get that, having more income than expenses is actually positive cash flow, but it's more of a conceptual thing, but just kind of leave it at zero. And if you want to put it at 2,000, you can do that as well. But okay, so now you have your expenses. Now, when you do your expenses, your expense breakdown has to equal 3,000, right? And what's really important when you do your expense breakdown is that every single debt you have, it's its own line item, right? So what's the most common types of debt? Student loan, auto loan. You have a mortgage too. We'll just say this person rents, and then you have other food, gas, insurance, etc., right? But these are the main ones, student, auto, and the reason why it's important to list out your debts, whether it's your credit cards or your loans, is that every single debt that you have is cash flow that you eventually want to recover. So you want to pay off the debt quickly and recover cash flow, and then pay off your other debts quickly, okay? So what you do right here is you list out the balance. So we'll just say it's $13,000. Actually, we'll say $10,000 balance. And what's the average monthly payment? I think it's 400 a month, right? 400 a month, okay? And we'll say 6% interest. And that's kind of irrelevant because of, and you'll kind of see if you use one of our calculators or other videos, like what's the difference between like certain interest rates, but it's more about your cash flow. But I'm not going to go too into that right now. Okay, but now we'll have our auto loan, and then we'll say that this is a $13,000 balance, and we'll say $600 a month payment. Now, here's a crazy thing. I heard recently from, I think, Caleb Hammer video or something like that, that the average auto loan payment is like $800 a month now. That's insane. But we'll just assume 600, right? So again, we have $400 a month payment here, $600 a month payment here, rent, other stuff, gas, food, insurance, stuff that's always going to be there, daily living expenses, always going to be there. And we'll just assume that we'll make this all equal up to 3,000, the magic number. So $400 a month for student loans, $600 a month in auto loans, $1,000 in student loans, and $1,000 in food, gas, insurance, and other. So you'll notice that this number magically should or be equal to the expenses, $3,000, right? So you do the expense breakdowns and you make sure that every single debt that you have is its own line item. Now, we have done step one, which is the budget. Complete, right? Complete. Okay, awesome. This is done. Now, step two is we need to use our line of credit and select it as our operating account. So let's just assume that we have good credit and the bank says, oh, hey, like we'll grant you a personal line of credit to use up to $25,000. So what does that mean? Basically, it means you could go to bank's website, right? You click a button, and then once you just click a button, they'll allow you to deposit from what you call a line of credit, $25,000 in cash into your checking account. Mind blowing. I didn't even know products like that existed. But let's just assume that we have that personal line of credit. And I'm going to tell you something about myself. I actually have $205,000 in lines of credit, right? 205. So from some people might say, oh well, it's hard to get 25. For me, 25 is chunk change. But that's what happens when you learn about credit. You'll easily be able to figure out what the banks are looking for, and it's really not that hard. And we offer classes on that if you want to join our group. But me personally, I have $205,000 lines of credit. Okay. So just want to throw that out there just in case we have someone who says, hey, 25,000, not anyone can, of course, not anyone can get that. Get educated, figure out the banks are looking for. It's not really that hard, right? So, okay. So now we have 25,000 in lines of credit. Now, what's really important is that we're going to use this as our operating account. So the average American uses the checking account as the main operating account, right? Bills get paid from checking. Like, what's the big deal? Whether you're using your line of credit or your checking account as the operating account, right? But you'll see that this will free up your cash flow and allow you to easily pay off your debts and maintain control of your money. Okay, so same income, we haven't paid off. We haven't made more income, although more income is great, right? Although there's statistic that says more than 50% of Americans, around that 50 to 60% mark, who make more than six figures, especially if you're a millennial and you're irresponsible. I'm a millennial too, so no shade there. I live paycheck to paycheck, right? So $5,000 a year. Be great if we had more money, but we'll just assume that we're making same amount. Expenses, we're going to kind of re-optimize our spending habits so that we can free up some of our cash flow. And if you know anything about velocity banking, you always want to kind of make the checking and savings go to zero, because we're going to use our entire paycheck to put in the line of credit and easily pay off our debts. Okay, and you'll see why the checking savings goes to zero, and then we're going to calculate our cash flow. So all right, so let's think about this. We're kind of re-engineering, re-optimizing our expenses. What's an easy way to pay off some debt and free up some cash flow? Right. So you might take a look here. It's $10,000 student loan and a $13,000 auto loan. Okay. So how can I free up some of that cash flow? Well, why don't we just move these two loans to that line of credit? So what does that mean? Basically, what you do is you go to the bank's website, right? And you'll notice that this is a $10,000 loan and a $13,000 auto loan balance. And what you're going to do is you're going to click the bank's website and say, hey, okay, give me or lend me $23,000 in my checking account. So you're gonna just click a few buttons and go 23,000. Boom, right? 23,000. And then you're going to use that 23,000 to pay off the student loan and auto loan, right? So this is going to go to zero, and then this is going to go to zero, this is go to zero, right? And then the balance is of that line of credit is going to be 23,000. Okay. Now look at what happened. So the rent and the other food gas stayed the same, but our expenses are now $2,000. Okay. Now this is what's going to happen. The way that velocity banking works, let me just kind of go over the quick strategy. So the strategy is paycheck, line of credit. You dump your entire paycheck to line of credit, and then you take your expenses from the line of credit. Okay. Now I know, so like, what's the big deal, right? And you'll see what I mean by that. But here's the thing: you take your entire paycheck into the line of credit. When you do that, you're minimizing the interest because it's going to be at the average daily lowest of the average daily balance, which is how the bank calculates the interest. And not only that, you satisfy the minimum monthly payment, right? So the minimum monthly payment, except for that interest that you have to pay, isn't really an expense. And then you take out money from the line of credit. So this $2,000 expenses. And so approximately every month, this is just an approximation, we're just making the math easy. The line of credit balance is going to go down about $3,000, right? Think about it. So you put 5,000 here, it's going to be about 18,000. Yeah, interest is accruing in the meantime. You take out 3,000, or I'm sorry, you take out 2,000 of expenses, and then it's going to eventually creep up to about 20,000. And so now, every month or so, it's going to go down 3,000, right? This isn't going to be an exact calculation. It's going to be approximation. But let me just kind of show you how that would work, right? So let's say we paid off our student auto loan. This we'll call this month 0, and then we'll just kind of estimate that after every month it's going to go down 3,000, right? So bam, 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 bam. Oh, this is negative 1,000. Not even possible. So we'll just say 0. All right. So let's see how many months that took. All right. So kind of about 7 months it took us to pay off this $23,000 of debt. Now, I don't know about you, but how many people do you know who have like student loans like 23, 24, or car loans in that range, and they don't pay it off in 8 months, right? Like, who does that? They just let it sit and float forever and ever. They're begging the government, oh, please give me a student deferral, loan deferral. I think the student loans have to be repaid back starting from this month or something like that. I don't even know because I don't even have student loans anymore. But the thing is, the system's a joke. It doesn't teach you how to succeed. And I don't know about you, but who pays off $23,000 of debt in about 7, 8 months? And here's the funny thing. Now, for me, that's a bad year, right? Because I paid off $58,000 of my mortgage in a year. Now, if you know a little bit anything about me, I actually have a rental property that I'm going to pay off in about 3 years, 3 to 4 years. 4 years is like the worst case scenario. And it's like, okay, like, 4 years for a rental property, but we're getting excited about $22,000 paying off in 8 months. Now, here's the thing: we got to start with baby steps, right? Because I've been kind of doing this for a little bit of time. I'm a ninja master at this, so don't resent yourself if you find this out. I hear a lot of people say, "Hey, I wish I found this out when I was like 20," but be realistic. Most 20-year-olds, because I look at my YouTube demographics, nobody who's in like the teens or 20s watches this channel, right? It's mostly people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, sometimes in their 30s. But sometimes that light bulb doesn't go, it doesn't go off until at a much later age. And we gain wisdom, we gain experience. So if you have learned this concept at a later age, don't fret. And if you're learning at an early age, sky's the limit. See what I'm saying? You could just try this out and figure out, pay off that debt, 23,000. Now, here's the thing: we paid it off for about 7, 8 months, right? Now, when you use other people's money, you always have to calculate the interest. How do you calculate the interest? We approximate it, right? Because the interest is actually calculated by the average daily balance. And it's impossible to actually know what the average daily balance is, because how do you predict when the expenses will happen, right? Don't you ever go grocery or gas shopping on random days and you just figure out, swipe your card or like spend random money on things? And so you don't know what your average daily balance will be, but you could kind of approximate it. You could over approximate it, right? So what you do is you take the previous month's balance, multiply it by the interest rate, and then you divide by 12, okay? So divide by 12. Why divide by 12? Because the interest rate is quoted annually. And, even though it's the average daily balance, you divide by 12 to kind of get the monthly interest. Okay. So now what you do is you got to sum this all up. I don't know if you ever took that Algebra 2 class back in high school, middle school. If you ever seen this button, you click it and then you sum it all up. And then now you'll notice that you paid about $1,250 in interest. Now, I know we didn't, real life, we don't calculate the interest till the very end in a separate column. You just kind of add it back. But, we just want to make this easy. Just put the interest back here, and then that's just another month. Okay, so you paid about 8-9 months, right? But who does that in real life? Because they're doing it in the average American does this thing called segregation of income, where if you pay off your bills from the checking account, all your income is segregated. And I have videos about this. And so it's not as effective as if you put your your paycheck into one place. Again, what's the strategy? You take your money from here, from your checking account, dump it all into the line of credit, and then take out your expenses from the line of credit, right? And so now your balance will go down accordingly. You'll pay some interest. And if you're in this situation, you'll pay about $23,000 of debt under a year, right? Under a year. And again, I'm going to show you my story again. I paid off $50,000 of mortgage, 58 in a year. So I know this is possible. And I know there are some of you skeptics out there who say, well, this is not possible. You can't do this, blah, 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 blah. So I guess, I'm showing you this. I'm showing you proof that I did it. But some of you all be like, I can't do it. It's like, okay, I guess, you're right. And I'll just agree with you so you go away. But, I don't know anyone else who's paid off $58,000 of debt. And as I said before, what's the average American scenario? You just pay for a property, and then 30 years later, you owe the same amount in loans, and you do refinances. And there's certain reasons for which I'm not going to go to, but most people pretty much never pay off their homes after 30 years, right? So if you can pay off your home mortgage in 30 years, I could do it in like 4, and I'm going to have a rental property that I'm going to pay off in about 3. Then, you're ahead of the curve, right? But I'm just taking your average scenario where I just pay off your debt about 8 to 9 months. We'll add a month or 2 just to kind of be, just in case something happens. Okay. All right. So this is Korean Atlanta mentorship. Now that we paid off our debt, right? So we paid off this student loan debt. Now what's going to happen is that after every single month, we're going to actually have real cash flow in our checking savings, and we're going to have play money. So after every month, it's going to go up 3,000, and then after a year or so, we'll actually have fun money and not borrowed money to kind of either buy a new car, pay things in cash, have fun, and not live paycheck to paycheck like the majority of Americans, right? So this cash flow is always just kind of increasing your checking and savings. All right. So this is Korean Atlanta Mentorship. If you're interested in joining our group, go ahead and click the Google form link below, and we'll get on a Zoom call to talk about your goals, needs, if you actually want to join the group. I know a lot of people, for some reason, and there's only, I'll be honest, only one person who's joined the group, right? And this one person who's joined the group actually paid off 4 of her debts in about like 2 weeks, right? Using this velocity banking strategy. Now, a lot of people, as I said before, full disclosure, we only have one person in the group, but a lot of people want to join the Zoom calls, and then, for whatever reason, they don't want to join the group. So maybe I got to do a little bit of better job of filtering the people who joined the Zoom calls. But, I like talking to people, and I don't think there's a really easy way to figure out, who wants to join the group or not, but no worries. All right. So go ahead and click the Google form link below. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down in the comment box below, and we will speak next time.